My name is H.A. Goodman. I'm an author, columnist, and journalist. And to read my writing and to see my latest CNN appearances and my MSNBC appearance from last year and all my appearances on different shows and podcasts, you can go to hagoodman.com. This segment is a very important segment, especially for Democratic superdelegates, because I'm doing them a favor. And I'm doing the Democratic establishment and all the people who benefit from the honest graft within the Democratic Party a very huge favor. I'm going to explain to you, Democratic superdelegates, what will happen to your system of corruption and honest graft and political appointments and voter suppression and election fraud. I'm going to explain what will happen to this system if Bernie Sanders is not the nominee during the contested convention that should never have taken place because Hillary should have wrapped it up already. That's what the conventional logic and all the smartest people in the room have been saying for the past year and a half. Didn't happen. The point is this: if Bernie Sanders is not the Democratic nominee, you are looking at a third party formed from the anger, frustration, and frankly hate of many progressives towards you, superdelegates, all 714 of you. And there are journalists who know your ties to lobbyists, and they know why the majority of you have sided with Hillary Clinton. It's not because of value system. It's because of other reasons. So, number one, if Bernie Sanders is not the Democratic nominee, and you go with Hillary Clinton in a contested convention that the world is watching, that young people, millennials, people in high school, will be watching, what takes place is this. And I'm explaining to you, superdelegates, what will happen. So you should thank me. First off, number one, 25 to 33% of Bernie Sanders supporters will never, ever, 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 ever vote for Hillary Clinton. This is not just H.A. Goodman talking, okay? I have a lot of fans who are Hillary supporters. They love me, but and they find me very credible. But forget about me. You can look at the polls that you used as the basis of why Clinton was going to win, which she won't win. She'll get indicted. The FBI doesn't do security reviews, and that Washington Post article was meaningless. Okay, because scant evidence doesn't mean no evidence. And malicious intent, you don't need malicious intent to be prosecuted under the Espionage Act. All you need is gross negligence. And President Obama already said she was careless. I can go on forever about that. But 25 to 33%, and it's still ongoing. And the FBI interviews or really interrogates Clinton very soon. She's facing indictment, or her top aides are facing indictment. So you can, when it happens, don't be surprised, Hillary supporters. 25 to 33% of Bernie supporters will never, Bernie Sanders voters will never vote for Hillary Clinton, ever. There's a reason for that. These people are principled. These people do not want a president, a Democrat in the White House advised by Henry Kissinger and Bush's neocons. And all the writers who don't like me, and all the writers who didn't like my FBI letter or any of my other writing, why are you voting for somebody who's advised by Henry Kissinger? Do you have any grasp of history? So you're voting for a Democrat who advised Richard Nixon, who is a war criminal to a great many people. So Henry Kissinger should not be advising Hillary Clinton. 33% of Bernie Sanders supporters will never vote for Hillary Clinton. That's number one. Part of that issue is this: there are 714 superdelegates. 522 have already advocated that they or supported Hillary Clinton. This is even when Bernie has won states, and according to basic common sense, they should go with Bernie if their state goes with Bernie. But nonetheless, these superdelegates still flock to Hillary Clinton. So 522 for Hillary Clinton, 39 for Bernie Sanders. When you look at the pledge delegates, it's 1,701 for Hillary Clinton, 1,411 for Bernie Sanders. The pledge delegates alone should explain to you the weakness of Hillary Clinton as a candidate, because you have Bernie Sanders, who was independent his entire life. Boom, he comes into the Democratic Party, becomes a Democratic nominee, and already he has 1,411 pledge delegates. The superdelegates are still holding tight because they can't switch for fear of retribution from both Clintons. But that should show you, superdelegates, and that should show you Democratic Party officials, how weak your system is. If a man who's principled and honest, like Bernie Sanders, and he's a once-in-a-lifetime candidate, so you're not looking at many threats like Bernie in the future. But if Bernie Sanders can go ahead, raise enough money to compete against you after decades and decades and decades of both Clintons building a political machine, what does that say about you? What does that say about your political machine? It says that you're weak. And it says that Bernie Sanders is on his way to winning a contested convention, especially because the FBI doesn't give parking tickets. And they don't care about Washington Post article headlines. Okay? And sources close to the FBI, there are also sources close to the FBI and Fox that say she's going to go to Guantanamo. So, tying into number one, number two, this is very, very important. Okay, this is extremely important. It's something that superdelegates should pay attention to. Michelle Alexander, who's extremely respected throughout the nation, wrote an article in the Nation publication titled "Why Hillary Clinton Doesn't Deserve the Black Vote." In the article, and she explains Clinton's use of the term super predator, and that was geared towards black youth. Bernie wasn't, by the way, Hillary supporters, there's a quote that's Bernie Sanders talked about criminals in the 90s. He wasn't talking about black youth. He was talking about criminals. Hillary Clinton was specifically talking about black youth, and she was specifically talking about young people in the quote that Michelle Alexander talks about in her Nation piece. But in the Nation piece titled "Why Hillary Clinton Doesn't Deserve the Black Vote," Miss Alexander states, "I am inclined to believe that it would be easier to build a new party than to save the Democratic Party from itself." That says it all, superdelegates. The idea, the paradigm is already changing from within. So people within the Democratic Party are people who look and can evaluate and see what's taking place and foreshadow your future, your political future. Establishment Democrats are saying that the Democratic Party, it might be too late to save it from itself. We already might need a third party. If you don't elect Bernie Sanders, say goodbye to the Democratic Party being one. You're going to look at a third party, just out of the frustration alone from having Clinton as Democratic nominee. Okay? Trust me, not everyone in the Democratic Party feels that Hillary Clinton is trustworthy. A great many progressives don't think that she's trustworthy and don't even think that she's progressive, don't even think that she should be a Democrat. And from voting from the Iraq War to a great many things, opposing gay marriage up until 2013. I know that a lot of people don't care about that, but the reason she evolved was because of polls, not principle. The second issue is this. Hillary Clinton, people like Hillary Clinton win what I call the Rahm Emanuel primary. What's the Rahm Emanuel primary? It's very similar to the invisible primary that has to do with superdelegates long before the election, which is also an insult to democracy. But the Rahm Emanuel primary is the endorsement of Rahm Emanuel to Hillary Clinton in 2014, 2 years before the Democratic primary. And this was even before Clinton decided to run, right? Because if you listen to Clinton, well, I didn't know I was running. Right. You've been running for the past couple decades. But a little background on Rahm Emanuel. 62% of Chicago residents disapprove of Rahm Emanuel. 8%, only 8% of Chicago's black citizens, black residents, feel that, quote, Emanuel cares a lot about them. Only 8%. 2/3 of black citizens in Chicago feel that he doesn't care at all or doesn't care that much about black citizens. This ties into his role in the cover-up of the Laquan McDonald murder. Now, one of the reasons I love Tim Black, and Tim Black is a friend of mine, and the link is below to his show, and this is a segment that made me fall in love with Tim Black. He talks about in this segment how he's watching Rahm Emanuel and pretty much everyone involved in a potential cover-up in the murder of a young black man. And Tim Black in this segment calls out everyone. These are very powerful people. These are very influential people in the city of Chicago. And Tim Black calls them all out. And in this segment, made me respect Tim Black immensely, because I've never seen progressives or liberals or anyone call out people like that who are corrupt within the Democratic establishment like Tim Black has. But most importantly, the fact that a Democrat could ever be linked to the cover-up of the murder of a young black male, a young black man, says everything you need to know about the Democratic Party. Explains everything you need to know about why there will most likely be a third party if superdelegates just go with Hillary Clinton, who was endorsed by Rahm Emanuel 2 years prior to the Democratic primary in 2014. Then there's Lee Fang, a journalist at The Intercept. I have a great deal of respect for Lee Fang, and Mr. Fang has documented the lobbyist ties to all you wonderful superdelegates. So if the 714 superdelegates know what's good for them in terms of a political future, you're going to nominate Bernie Sanders. Because people like Lee Fang and people like Tim Black and a great many other people out there are not going to just stand for you to just nominate somebody who was endorsed by Rahm Emanuel 2 years before the Democratic primary, and somebody who takes prison lobbyist money. Hillary Clinton took money from prison lobbyists. That's a fact. You don't care, establishment writers. You could care less. The next issue is there's another journalist, investigative journalist, named Charles Lortell. He's a conservative. He's done amazing work regarding the Clinton Foundation. So the money that or the power and influence that you derive from the Clinton Foundation, Democratic superdelegates, that will be gone if you nominate Clinton and not Bernie Sanders. Mr. Lortell has spent over a year explaining that the Clinton Foundation is essentially a money laundering organization that is, quote, charity fraud. And if you think this is horrible, establishment Democrat writers, if you think that I'm quoting a conservative, there are other progressives that say the same thing. The next issue is the issue of honest graft. Look up the history of that phrase. Goes back to Tammany Hall. Superdelegates. In other countries, by the way, if you're watching, in other countries, let's say, for example, well, I'm not going to call it other countries, but in other countries that are said to be less democratic than the United States of America, there's overt corruption. So you give money to the politician and you say, okay, hook me up. Here's the money. In the United States, we don't do that. We have a system that is composed of superdelegates, Democratic superdelegates, and that Hillary Clinton is supposed to give money to down-ticket Democrats, but she keeps most of the money. And because of this system of honest graft, The value system goes, any principles and values go out the window. But guess what? Bernie Sanders has already shown that you can just run based on values, principles, and ideals. Not good for you, superdelegates. $27 a person, and he's already outraised Hillary Clinton 3 months prior to April. And he has money, enough money, to fight and battle until the contested convention that you thought was never possible. Last couple of things. The issue of invisible primaries, the issue of people saying that Clinton won in 2015, that type of thing will never happen again. If the Democratic Party splits, you're not going to be able to anoint or crown a person. Think about that, superdelegates. Think about your future. Sure, you might face some repercussions from Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton, but those would be short term. The future of the Democratic Party is Bernie Sanders. The future of the Democratic Party is what Bernie Sanders stands for, what you should have stood for, and what you gave up because of political power. Lastly, this is a helpful reminder to the Democratic establishment of what will take place if Bernie Sanders is not nominee. So don't say I didn't warn you. Everything that you've worked so hard for. What was it? The mayor of Atlanta wrote a column, anti-Bernie column, and it was written by guess who? The Intercept broke this story, I believe. It was written by David Brock. Isn't that wonderful? So that's the type that type of system will come crumbling down. You nominate Hillary Clinton, the repercussions are a third party. And the political ramifications are that you will lose your power, you will lose your ability to suppress voters, election fraud, and everything. You don't want that. You still want to at least keep some semblance of that. Okay? Don't nominate somebody under FBI investigation and somebody who's going to hand Republicans 8 years of the White House. 4 years of Hillary Clinton, scandals, controversy. The GOP will never, ever let her govern without continual attempts at impeachment. So you're looking at 4 years of Clinton, 8 years of a Republican. That's another reason to nominate Bernie. But I've gone over the time I usually go. Thank you so much for listening. I'm only voting for Bernie Sanders in 2016. Millions of people like me are only voting for Bernie. And you should thank me, Democratic superdelegates. I'm doing you a big favor with this segment. So listen to people like Michelle Alexander, like Tim Black, like Lee Fang, like Charles Lortell, and listen to me, because I'm telling you what will happen if Bernie Sanders is not nominee. Thank you for listening.